Yo, what's up guys? How you doing? How's your week been going? I hope your training is going strong. Let me know down below. Remember to drop those updates. I don't know if any of you guys caught my tweet the other day or my Instagram story, but in my Japanese lesson, I learned that the phrase to build your muscles in Japanese, kinniku o kitaeru, uses the same verb to forge that you would use if you were to say I am forging a sword as a blacksmith. So effectively, to build muscles is like forging muscles like a blacksmith. It doesn't get more video game than that. We are now forging muscles. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Today's video is all about tracking. Last week I put up a video on weight loss and weight gain. You guys seem to really enjoy it. I appreciate the support, but there were a couple of questions in that one. One of them was more specifically just how do I use MyFitnessPal, because it can be quite confusing. Another one was sort of, if I have multiple elements to my meal, say a salad with like 5 or 6 different ingredients, how do I go about tracking that effectively? So today I thought I'd put together a video talking about how to track or how I track my food, and hopefully in doing so, it gives you guys some tips and makes things easier to understand. Alright, let's get started because of course I want to try and go through quite a lot in this video and I want to try and do it as condensed as possible. I have already re-recorded this because it went on too long. So as a quick recap from last week's video, of course, when I say tracking, I'm referring to weighing your food and logging it in some kind of app, whether that be MyFitnessPal or something else, as a means to track your calories. Again, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to gain weight, whether you want to just maintain weight, it is all about energy balance. It is all about calories in, calories out. So tracking is simply logging what you eat, tracking what you eat so you know how many calories you are consuming, and that then gives you data which you can then use to make decisions based on your results. So, when it comes to tracking, I use a thing called MyFitnessPal. Again, there are plenty of other apps out there. MyFitnessPal is probably the most commonly used one. It has a very extensive database of food in there, and of course it's got inbuilt barcode scanners, so you can kind of just log a lot of foods very conveniently. You can use whatever you want, but for the purpose of this video, I'm talking about MyFitnessPal. Now, assuming you saw last week's video, we were talking about, weight loss and weight gain. I mentioned that, of course, in order to kind of start this process, you want to use a TDEE calculator to work out your maintenance calories, and then depending on whether you want to be in a deficit or a surplus, you can then adjust accordingly. Now, assuming you have your number of calories and you have your macros, you then turn your attention to MyFitnessPal. The first thing you want to do is you want to set up your goals. If you click the 3 dots in the corner and you go to goals, you can then go to a section under nutrition goals called calorie, carbs, protein, and fat goals. If you click on this in the app is where you go to add your calories and to add your macros. Now, I do have the premium version of this. There are some discrepancies in functionality. You will all have access to this, but the difference is when I go to do this, I can specify exact numbers in terms of grams for my protein, carbs, and fats. If you have the free version, you have to use the percentage thing. You can still get the same results, but there is a slight discrepancy. Effectively, what you do is you go to this wheel, let's say you're doing percentages, and you just want to spin the wheels until you get close to your numbers. Let's say you've gone onto the TDEE calculator and it's giving you a number of carbs, a number of proteins, and a number of fats. So long as you are relatively close to this, you're not going to get like an exact numerical match, but so long as you are, within like 5-10 grams, give or take, you're fine. So basically what you would do here is you would spin the wheels to, obviously your percentages need to equal 100%, but spin the wheels to get to the appropriate macros, and then in doing so, when you press tick, it should then give you a calorie number which is very close to what is on the calculator. Again, it's not going to be an exact match, but it'll be very close. Since I have the premium version, I can of course do it in grams, but regardless, you'll get to a position where you then have your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats, and your overall calories. When you go back from there and you then go to your main diary page, it will then have your calorie goal, your remaining calories, and if you then click on the top of it, that will actually expand into the nutrition section. From here, you can look at your calories for the day, you can look at your nutrients, which of course is the main page you're going to use. This is kind of like a video game stat sheet. Basically, the progress bar goes towards your goal for the day, and you can also see your macro split. So this is where you can kind of go to check your values. Now, once you've got this, it's then just simply a case of adding your foods. I'm going to go to tomorrow just because it's a blank slate, but the principle is the same. You'll have different meals in here. By default, if you've got it set up, it will just say breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. You can use the columns accordingly. You can go on the official website, log in there, and change the names of your meals. You don't have to do that though. Basically, just use what's available. If you go into a section, you click add food, and from here you have a number of options. By far the easiest thing to do is simply to use the barcode scanner. You click on that, and you can scan your foods. Again, it's got a pretty extensive database. In doing so, it will then pull up the food, and 9 times out of 10, it'll find it. Occasionally, it might read the barcode wrong. Sometimes you need to physically type the barcode in. Other times, you might have to manually enter it. 99% of the time it can find your foods. So this is by far the easiest way to do it. Now it's worth noting, often when you scan foods, let's just take something like a fillet steak. Often if you scan a food, it will bring up a default value for a set weight. It'll be something like, here are the macros for 100 grams of fillet steak. But what if I have 137 grams? Or what if I have 97 grams? What if I have 150 grams? Easiest way to do it is simply to go to the serving size, and if you click on that, you can actually change that down to 1 gram, and you can then use the number of servings to act as your actual grams. So let's say I have a 137 gram steak, I have to do the serving size as 1 gram, the number of servings as 137, and these are now the correct macros for 137 grams of fillet steak. So if you scan something in and it gives you just a default value of 100 grams, do that, change it, and then you can weigh your things to the exact value and put it in correctly. Another useful thing the app will do is as you begin to add foods together, if, say like me, you eat the same thing or you eat similar meals a lot of the time, then it will start to predict what you want to put with certain foods. So take my breakfast, which is overnight oats. It's comprised of, surprise, surprise, oats, plus it then suggests, it says, these are some things that have been frequently paired together, and my overnight oats recipe is quite simply oats, banana, almond milk, frozen raspberries, and protein powder. So suddenly, on a day-to-day basis, logging breakfast becomes a, 10-second experience because I just go in, search for oats, and then tick everything else. If I want to change the value of the banana for that day, I can select it individually and say, no, today's banana is 137 grams, but it suddenly becomes a lot quicker. Now, if you happen to be in a position where, say, you can't find your food, or maybe you don't necessarily have a barcode for it, you can just search. You can go to the second section and you can search for a food and search for something like, I don't know, sardines in a tin. And what will actually happen is it will bring up lots of recipes. These are things that have been logged in the database. Now, keep in mind, these can vary depending on, it might be like an American brand or a UK brand. It might be a lot more fat in it. They can vary quite a lot. So where possible, try to log the things yourself. Try to scan your own barcodes. But on the occasion, or you might go, say, be out in a restaurant and you might want to say, look for Nando's chicken. In situations like that, you can sometimes find things and then you can simply add them that way. But again, where possible, do try to do it yourself. You can also click the plus in the top right hand corner if you want to add your own custom foods. For example, if you scan something and the barcode hasn't scanned correctly, you can simply type in the details here and you can then input all the necessary calories and the proteins. But again, you won't have to do that very often. Now, there are, of course, a whole load of other options in MyFitnessPal, but honestly, I wouldn't get bogged down with those. You honestly don't need to use them. I don't use anything else other than logging my food. I don't log my workouts in there. I don't log the water that I drink in there. I literally just track my food. Keep it simple. Again, the running trend with all the videos recently has been whatever is the simplest thing to do is invariably what we'll stick at, so keep things simple. Track your food, log it in MyFitnessPal, and that's it. So with that being said, following on from there, the question then is, what do I track? Now, in an ideal world, you track everything, right? If you're an elite level athlete, especially so, you want to know everything that you are consuming. I will say, however, there are some exceptions. There are some things you can kind of just get away without tracking if you just want to make your life a little bit easier. If you don't suddenly want to get to every single meal and be like, I'm going to weigh my meat, I'm going to weigh my potatoes, I'm going to weigh this sauce, I'm going to weigh this salad, I'm going to weigh all these different things like that. I get it, it can sometimes be annoying. So most importantly, you need to track your primary protein source, meat, fish, legumes, whatever it is that you consume for your protein. You need to track your primary carb source, potatoes, rice, pasta, whatever it be. And you need to track your main fat sources, oils, butters, milk, cheeses, that kind of thing. Those are, of course, the most calorie-dense foods. You need to make sure you're tracking those. Outside of that, it's worth tracking sauces. If you make, say, a pasta dish and you put a load of sauce in there, you want to track that. If you're drinking fruit juices, sodas, milk, that kind of stuff you want to track. Where you can make some concessions is, generally speaking, vegetables, because a lot of the time vegetables tend to be pretty light on calories. A handful of spinach or a plate of spinach has basically no calories. A lettuce, basically no calories. Some cucumber, basically no calories. Now, obviously, keep in mind you need to do this sensibly. If you have a bucket of broccoli, that's a lot of broccoli, you should probably track it. But if you have a portion of broccoli, you can get away without tracking it. So suddenly then tracking for your meal becomes super simple. It's just chicken, potatoes, some fat, and then a handful of vegetables. You can do that if you want to. Also, when it comes to seasonings, if you put some salt and pepper on stuff, if you put some, I don't know, Cajun seasoning or something, if your seasoning portion looks like this, you can probably get away without tracking it. Meanwhile, if your seasoning portion looks like this, you should probably track it. do it sensibly, but most importantly, when it comes to, you know, like especially vegetables, especially kind of light things like that, if you really want to make your life easier and you don't want to suddenly be weighing every individual thing, so long as you're tracking the most important things, the most calorie dense things, the things that are highest in calories, then the rest of it you should be okay with. So finally, just to wrap the video quickly, why do you want to track? I touched on this again briefly in last week's video, but mainly it gives you the insight. Of course, it gives you accurate data. If you know how many calories you are consuming, then when you start achieving your results, or if you don't start achieving your results, you have the data necessary to understand why. If you know that you are trying to lose weight, yet you actively know you're eating more than you should be, then you know why you're not getting results. Similarly, if you're trying to put on size and you know that you're not eating enough, the data will tell you. There is no magic to it. Again, it's all about calories in, calories out. So by tracking it, it gives you the insights. But more importantly, it also means you can enjoy what you eat. You don't have to live a life of eating boring foods or the kind of typical diet foods. If you start tracking your calories, you can suddenly find out that you can fit the foods that you like into your diet. I know that if I want to eat a pizza, my local supermarket sells a great stone-baked sourdough pizza that fits into my macros. So if there's a day where I just fancy having a pizza, I know I can do it. If I didn't track my calories, I wouldn't know that that was able to fit. I would just assume it is a bad food. So suddenly tracking, while it might seem in the outset a little bit annoying, a little bit kind of setup, once you get used to it, A, it's easy to do, B, it's kind of like a video game, and C, it lets you enjoy the foods, it lets you eat the foods that you want to eat. Because ultimately, long term, if you're going to be kind of, you know, cutting or bulking, you don't just want to eat the boring stuff. You want to be able to enjoy your food, because if you enjoy it, you're more likely to stick to it, and also you're more likely to stick to it when you get to your goals. So learning to eat what you want is a much more enjoyable process. So yeah, data is everything. We play video games, you want to know how to level up faster? You need the data, right? So it's the same with food. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I hope that has helped you. I hope that has shed some light on how MyFitnessPal works, how tracking works, and maybe kind of where you can sort of cut some corners if you need to. But if you've got any more questions, by all means let me know in the comments down below. If you've missed any of the recent videos, then definitely check them out. And of course, I'll catch you guys next week.